to talk to our bloggers about the same issue, which is how do we get out of Iraq and do it responsibly. I want to introduce that panel to you guys. First, we're going to start with David Goldstein. He calls himself an accidental activist, but his refreshing blend of satire, muckraking, and thoughtful analysis is nothing if not intentional, deliberate, and plain hilarious. Welcome to horsesasses.org's founder, David Goldstein. Our next guest's political experience dates back to a childhood door-knocking campaign for our hero, Democratic Senator Frank Church. She's worked in Capitol Hill offices, is a full-time writer and contributor to Daily Kos now, where she blogs as McJoan. She's even moderated a presidential debate, Joan McCarter from Daily Kos. And Matt Stoller was on Meet the Bloggers just a couple of weeks ago talking about the energy plan with Harry Reid. We want to welcome him back. Matt started blogging all the way back in 2002. He blogs at openleft.com. He's been quoted by the New York Times, Washington Post, and The Nation, and he's currently serving as the lead strategist for the Responsible Plan to End the War in Iraq. Welcome, everybody, and I want to start with Matt. Matt, real quick summary of what is in the Responsible Plan to End the War in Iraq.
Well, basically, it's reframing the broken conversation we have on Iraq. It has two main parts. One is, how do we end the war responsibly? And two is, how do we make sure that the mistakes that led us into the war don't happen again? So the way you end the war responsibly is you remove the troops and you build up the diplomatic apparatus so that you can stabilize the region, deal with humanitarian issues at the same time as the troops are coming out. The second part is to reform the media, get off of oil, remove excessive executive authority, a lot of different budgeting changes to make it really much harder to go to war, really fix some of the structural problems. And then finally, take this plan and actually have people at the ballot box vote for candidates who support the plan as a way of re-legitimizing how we do foreign policy and reconnecting that to the public.
Joan, we talk about making sure the next war doesn't happen. I think part of the way that we do that is we find out why this war happened in the first place. So let me ask you a broad question in that regard. Why do you think we went in? What do you think is the real reason we went into Iraq in the first place?
I think you need to be a psychologist to figure that one out with George Bush. I think one of the primary reasons, however, has to be the oil. Oil which we don't have access to, oil which could be helping us out right now, and oil which doesn't look like it's going to be flowing to the United States anytime soon.
See, Matt, that's the thing. The media never mentions the 800-pound gorilla in the room. We're told about weapons of mass destruction. We're told about the non-existent links to Al-Qaeda, Saddam, etc. And everybody forgets. But never is oil mentioned. Do you really think that this was really just part of our energy policy, the war in Iraq?
Well, I mean, the people who do mention it are people on Wall Street, people like Alan Greenspan, oil executives, Bush administration officials, basically the people controlling money. They understood what this war was about. And it's not about going into the second largest gas station in the world and just taking the oil. It's about control of a vital resource that hamstrings our economy and everyone else's economy as well. And it's of interest to these people to make sure that that information about how our economy actually functions is not accessible by the large number of the public and liberal intermediaries. And so what they do is they smear anybody who actually tries to connect what we're doing in Iraq with with the war, with oil, with our economy. And they successfully sort of have done that. But it is inevitably true, and the public actually pretty much understands that there's a reason we invaded, say, Iraq, and not any of the other 100 countries on this planet. And it probably has to do with the question, how did our oil get under their sand?
Right, exactly. David, there's a new Associated Press story saying that Iraqi officials are telling the press that they are close to a deal in actually withdrawing, getting American troops out of Iraq by 2010, October 2010 to be specific. Is that pretty close to the Barack Obama plan? And if Bush signs off on that, have we ended the war in Iraq?
let's be clear, it's completely different, because what Barack Obama is talking about is a timetable, whereas this is a time horizon.
Oh.
That's what the administration is telling us. It's not a timetable, so of course it's entirely different. But of course it's the same thing. And it just goes back to the responsible plan when it was released back in March. And it was somewhat ridiculed by people on the right. The main points of the plan that Darcy was talking about earlier, the main points that are in there, it all comes from the Baker-Hamilton Commission. It comes from various military and national security experts. It comes from existing legislation. And it's so obvious that even the Bush administration and the Iraqi government is now, at least to some extent, following the main points.
Joan, did the media learn all the wrong lessons from this so-called surge? That they look at it and they go, all right, extra troops, mission accomplished, that's what worked. When in fact, it is, as David just pointed out, things that were in the responsible plan that were adopted, making deals with the Sunnis and the Shiites. And is there a way we can break through that media clutter? Because I know that's part of the plan, to let forget the American people. First, we got to let the media know, hey, listen, pay attention to what actually worked, and that was diplomacy.
I've kind of given up on the media actually learning lessons. One of the things that we've seen with this is that they've continually accepted the moving goalposts of the Bush administration and what this surge was actually supposed to accomplish, which was giving the Iraqis the political room to negotiate, the political room to rebuild a government. We had the Afghanistan parliament breaking up again without making any serious movements toward consolidation just this week. And we see mostly the problem is being Kirkuk and still sectarian violence that's about to break open in Kirkuk and the inability to resolve that issue. So I think, yes, the media has bought into the idea, the moving goalposts of the Bush administration on the surge. One thing I would recommend people do is look at international media in terms of this. Look at what The Guardian has reported with Gaith Abdul Ahad, a video journalist who has some great videos out on the web showing exactly what's happened in Baghdad, particularly as a result of the surge.
Well, stay right there, guys. We got to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to talk about a poll that's in the live blog. What has helped to reduce the level of violence in Iraq the most? I think the answers to that poll and your answers to it are going to be very interesting. So hold right there. And guys, remember, of course, the live blog continues throughout the show, and Jonathan Kim is running it today from Fox Attacks. And check out the polls and give us your comments and questions as well. So we'll be right back on Meet the Blogger.